Jordan Love says he does not have a wide receiver one. This is somewhat breaking news because it has some implications in terms of draft ADP and what people make of this already confusing wide receiver room, already very debated wide receiver room. And is there something of a hidden gem in this content right here? We're going to talk about that and more. We're also drafting, so I'm going to drop the Underdog link, code Smitty. Use the link to get into the live drafts tonight. $10 minimum. They'll they'll give you 50% on your first deposit, up to $250. So hit that link right now. I'll pin the link in the live chat for those that want to draft with us. But first, let's talk a little Jordan Love. Let's talk a little Green Bay Packer wide receiver production and fantasy football draft value. ADP, the Fantasy Football Show live edition, graveyard edition, draft edition begins right now.
Live from the FantasyFootballShow.com studios.
It's the Fantasy Football Show. Live!
Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Smitty is also live whenever news breaks.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com news desk, here is your breaking news.
So this news is kind of good for the fantasy football world, for the astute fantasy football mind like you. People in my live stream know what time it is. People in my show community know that this Green Bay Packer wide receiver crew has a couple of gems in it. And no, I'm not talking about Dobbs or Wicks. Those are pretty solid prospects, if you will. Wide receiver 3 on the team that could be productive here or there. Best ball, they're probably better to grab than a non-best ball, Wicks and Dobbs, because they could have big games. Dobbs could have a 2-touchdown, 45-yard game. He could have those kind of spike weeks. But when it comes down to trying to find out who the number one is, he's not really wrong. Because even we debate whether it's Reed or Watson. When Watson was on the field, he was the number one wide receiver for the team. You can't debate that. You can't debate that. That is statistical data. When Watson was on the field getting starter targets and volume, and he wasn't injured, he didn't leave the game early. When he played, he was the number one wide receiver. All that being said, the entirety of the 2023 season, Jaden Reed developed more rapport, got better, started getting used like Deebo Samuel in a way. And he's not really wrong. There are 2 wide receivers, and I think this is more about him being courteous to his wide receiver room. He's probably pretty close to everybody. This is him trying to be PC about it. And it came out probably in a way he didn't know how else to handle it. You know, like, we don't really have a wide receiver. The comments were very, very, crispy clear, though. He said it helps us not to have a number one guy, a true number one wide receiver. It wasn't like he really misspoke and said, look, everybody's a number one on our team. He didn't say that. Like CJ Stroud said, we got 3 number one wide receivers. Probably something he should have maybe reworded, right? Because he said we don't have a true number one guy. But what I think he really was trying to refer, because I think I'm going to correct him and say he just poorly worded it. He wasn't prepared to answer the question. He was trying not to crap on one of his buddies over the other. He said you don't need to have a number one wide receiver. He means like a number one leading the team wide receiver. I believe if you re-asked him the question and he kind of looked at how Stroud answered it, he would tell you, no, we got 2 guys at least that could be a top 10 wide receiver. I'm not saying Watson and Reed will be, but I believe that there's a ton of value because of the ambiguity and it being an obscure type of situation. Nobody knows. Even in our own live chat, we have people saying, I saw it earlier, Reed's the number one. And everyone's like, yeah, I agree, there's no number one. Then you're going to have Watson was the number one. Watson was the number one last year. Reed looked like he was the number one last year. There's so much confusion around this situation that it's really hard to know what in the hell is going on here. It truly is. And for that reason alone, there's value embedded, baked in to the situation. Absolutely baked in. Baked in, boys. There's no safer wide receiver to grab than Christian Watson. He's going so late, you don't need to grab him anywhere near your top wide receiver 3 value. And Jaden Reed's maybe not a wide receiver 3. He might have to be your wide receiver 2-3. Like, he can be your third. It depends how you're building. You got a quarterback, early quarterback. You got a running back in Derrick Henry. And you got 2 wide receivers already, a DK and maybe a Debo, whatever the case may be. Yeah, Jaden Reed can be your number 3 wide receiver. That kind of build he can be. He is a 2/3, and I think he deserves to be. And I think that he's going to get better. For us to try and say this offense can't have 2 low-end wide receiver 1s, or better yet, 2 extremely high-end wide receiver 2s. I think this is the same situation in Houston. I don't think that we necessarily will see 2 wide receivers playing lesser than the Houston guys. I truly don't. I think Nico and Tank Dell or Diggs, whichever 2 you think, even so, because there's 3, right? They're going to dilute each other even more to equal what this might be. But I think there's a world where Christian Watson and Jaden Reed have every bit, who knows which one a little bit over the other. That's the whole point of tonight. Who knows which one's going to be better. One of those guys will be as good as maybe one of the guys over on the Houston Texans side. And you can say whatever you want about that. If you disagree, agree, doesn't matter. Like, this is something that's evolving over here in Green Bay. Jordan Love's only going to get better. This offense is only going to get better. They added Josh Jacobs. It's only going to be more. The field's going to be stretched more. This is a situation that I truly believe is going to, at the end of the season, tell a story about how everybody ignored the Green Bay wide receivers because they weren't sure which one to grab. And the people that maybe take a best ball approach, draft 1 in one league, 1 in another, draft both of them, figure out a way to make sure you've got hands in one of these market values of these guys in one league and 1 in the other. You're I think missing the boat if you think that this team is going to dilute it so much around these kinds of comments, right? If you're thinking he's believing we've got 3 wide receiver low-end 2s, I don't think he's thinking that. I think he very badly worded it, and what he would say if he could do it over again was, we don't need to have somebody consistently getting all the targets and work. We have a very well-rounded crew. The defenses don't know what's coming. And I think that's the greater point. Not to mention, if we're being completely honest here, Christian Watson hasn't earned the number 1 spot because he's been hurt. We are awaiting him to play a healthy year. We think he figured out his hamstring situation. One of his legs is 30% smaller than the other because he never got over some hamstring injuries and other injuries. Compensation, you hear me talk about compensation injury all the time. Christian Watson may have figured it out, but he does not earn, in our minds, the number 1 wide receiver role. It is supposed to be, by a sharp mind, a logical mind, handed to Jaden Reed. He's the number 1. That's what his ADP tells you. That's what I think a logical mind would tell you. Christian Watson's the sleeping giant dark horse number 1. But Jaden Reed has mother freaking earned that starting job. And he brings that rushing production that Watson also brings. So there's no like, oh, well, if Watson is healthy, he'll be better for sure because he runs the ball. So does Jaden Reed. And it's almost like this team has 2 Debo Samuels. If you laugh at that, keep in mind that Christian Watson, when he had his, 8 touchdowns in that 3-game period, or 7 touchdowns in that 3-game period, one of them was a 40-plus yard touchdown run. And let's not forget, Jaden Reed's good for at least 220, 230, and 2 scores on the ground every single year. This team will build up a top 12 wide receiver. The question is, do you have the balls to grab both of them and divide this thing up, grab both of them in one league, grab both of them, just dividing it up, 1 in one league, 1 in the other? Or are you running away from the situation that's right in front of your face? A potent offense, improving, stretching the field, new run game. That's up to you. That's up to you. You know what else is up to you? Whether we're going to draft right now and you're going to be a part of it. That link has been dropped. That link has been pinned. Anybody that wants to get in on the drafts tonight, hit that link, use code Smitty. Underdog will match your first deposit up to 50% to the tune of $250. Meaning you drop 100, they'll give you 50. You drop the $10 minimum, they'll give you 5. You drop 500, they'll give you 250. Up to 250 by hitting that link or using code Smitty. Both of them get it done. Let's jump into a draft right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to scoot on over to the Underdog app. I'm going to go to the lobby, and I'm going to scroll to... Should we do a marathon? Let me see here. Dalmatian, Big Dog, BBM. We haven't done any. Chihuahua 2. $4 Chihuahua 2. Jump in. Hit the button. I'll wait about 7 seconds because of the YouTube delay. It's one of the very last cards. Chihuahua 2. The Chihuahua 2. Punch it. Do it live. I'm going to put it on screen here in just 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. So jump on over to the Chihuahua. Let's see here. Starts in 55 seconds. Let me put the draft board up. There we go. Doing it live. Phone lines are open. Dial in.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Call into the Addict.shop phone lines. The Addict.shop. Get all of your movie apparel from the Addict.shop. Do it live. This is some of the best apparel out there. They're sending me all my new stuff. We've had some winners of the. We're still waiting for this one to count down. It's already been full. If you missed out on getting into this draft, just get into the next one. But we had some winners. Oh, it looks like I'm in the first spot. Attaboy. Attababy. I'm drafting from the 1. We had some winners of some hoodies, and they got their hoodies before I got mine, which is what I want. I want my people to get the hoodies first, but they redid their hoodies. They're now phenomenal, the Addict.shop logos. Okay, this is the Chihuahua. And it's a 1, QB. It's not a super flex of any kind. Let's go CMC. I always try and take CMC in the 1 pick. You don't get the 1 pick enough. And when you do, this is your shot at CMC. You're not going to get any other chances to get him unless you're in a super flex. But so I just use all of my CMC, you could say, percentage of ownership on the 1 pick drafts. Occasionally, I'll draft like another player like Lamb or somebody just because I want to try and build a wide receiver in round 1 team from the 1 spot, because I think it's important to build different teams from every single spot from about a 90% perspective. If I get the 1 pick, that's when I'm going to take that gamble on Christian McCaffrey, because no matter what anybody says, this whole dumb way people describe it, where's my alerts? We got a $10 hauler. Let me see if I can get my alerts over here. Hold on. Let me just copy and paste this over. Let's see if we can get this on the screen here. All right, hopefully the alerts show up. But $10 hauler from Matthew. Matthew, appreciate you. I don't forget what I was saying. Sebastian, you're live. If you remember what I was saying, remind me.
Smitty, I'm back in the U.S. finally after like a week.
Nice, bro.
And you know what stood up to me as soon as I came back?
What's up?
I don't know if I'm crazy, but it feels like Devontae Smith shot up way up in ADP over the last couple days.
Depends on where you are seeing that, because some of the contests are different than others. I think you might see that in like a Superflex more because of the cuffing of the two, the stacking. Because you'll see a lot of people, they're trying to get that Week 17 Philadelphia Eagles stack, and so that's probably where you're seeing it. I don't know if you've seen it in Best Ball Mania, but I think that's probably what you're seeing.
I feel like a couple weeks ago he was going like 36 over by Tank Dell and Pittman, but the 27, 28, and I've even seen people reaching from like mid second round.
He
for
is
whatever reason.
He is 26 on this draft, so yeah, he has climbed up. I mean, rightly so. He's been one of the most underrated players, I think, in fantasy. In that 5 round territory, he was going around 5 for a while. Like he could be the number 1 on the Philadelphia Eagles roster. This is not I love AJ Brown. I'm not trying to to downplay A.J. Brown's ability and upside, but if somebody thinks that Devontae Smith can't outscore A.J. Brown, if they think that's a Tyreek Hill and Waddle comparison, you're out of your mind. I love A.J. Brown. I love him, but Devontae Smith is still maturing, and he has every bit of the ability to become a number one for his team unless he's on JJ's team or CeeDee Lamb's team. I like A.J. Brown, but A.J. Brown doesn't just de facto hold him off. I'm not saying that I take A.J. Brown under him. I'm just saying, like, I love the value. This is kind of like the Tank Dell argument with Nico. Like, let people take Nico. Look, Nico just went 21. I want nothing to do with Nico at 21. Nothing to do with Nico at 21. I want everything to do with getting Tank Dell in round 4. Okay, so I'm on the clock here. I'm going to go Debo because I do want to grab one wide receiver. I'm going to take Kyron's shot up to ADP board. Why is Kyron sitting at... He was falling a little bit further than this. Now he climbed back up. I'm going to go Kyron and Christian McCaffrey and Debo Samuel. Love the trio. Matthew with the $10 hauler. Hold on one second, Sebastian.
To the moon.
To the moon, Matthew. Appreciate you dropping the 10 wad. Matthew says, did a Dalmatian draft on Underdog, promo code Smitty. There you go. What do you think about my team? Mahomes, Fields, Bijan, Barkley. Love that. Achan, wow. White, Hollywood, Coleman, JSN. I mean, you're obviously a little light at wide receiver. You went heavy running back, but I like it. And your tight end room, Ferguson, I like that. It's a very, very good tight end room. Musgrave, Schultz, very, very solid, bro. You just want to have Hollywood, Coleman, and JSN, and Dotson, and Pearsall. You need something big to happen, and that's a good crew to expect that from. I don't mind this team at all. It is definitely more risky. You're definitely going to have people tell you the odds of you winning are a lot lower because you didn't have good wide receiver consumption and a wide receiver build. But don't let that worry you at all because there's still those smaller percentages of people that do these kinds of things that get in. It's just a lesser percentage of them. And when people try and use that data to scare people off of doing a unique and different strategy, I think that's the wrong approach because maybe this strategy is what you crush. If you're good at this strategy, you're obviously going to be one of those people that slip in. You know, it's weird to me. It's wild to me that people think you can't do something. Like, I get that the data is important, but it's wild and ridiculous and reckless to assume that you can't do something different 1 year later using data from last year. It's the stupidest argument in the world. Matthew, appreciate you. I like the team. I like the balls that you got throwing that one down. Travis Rowe, you're on the phone live. Hold on, Sebastian. I'll come back to you. Travis, you're up.
Hey, I think another thing this tells us is that, which, you know, we're hearing good things, but I think it just adds to the fact that we can count on that at least to start the season. Watson is going to be healthy and playing really well if you kind of read him between the lines. Otherwise,
yeah,
you know, he might have worded it a little different, or there might have been some hesitation, or, you know, he seemed pretty clear there's, you know, we don't have one. And I read into it like you did, meaning like we have more than one guy that can be that one.
Yeah, let me try. I'm gonna try and grab this draft board so I can go back over to. Hold on one second. Back and forth, so when I'm on the clock, I can come back. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I think that he worded it wrong, but the couple of these phrases though were pretty you know, distinct, you know, and very, very clear messages. Like, it helps us not having a number one guy, but he keeps saying like number one in terms of, I think, probably consistency. Yeah, I think he's talking that way. I don't think he's talking about. I don't think anybody in their right mind would say, yeah, we don't have the guy that's talented enough to be a number one wide receiver on the team. Like, I don't think he's saying that at all. I think people are wild to insinuate that that's the case. Real quickly, hold on. Let me make a selection here. Man. Kelsey. I think I'm going to go Kelsey here. I'm contemplating Kincaid, though.
Well, pretty good.
I'm gonna because I'm going McCaffrey. I'm gonna go old dogs on this one. I'm gonna go Kelsey and Kelsey and McCaffrey on this one. Kincaid, I've been smashing a lot lately. I could go bully tight end, but I'm not. Now I got a dilemma here. Do I go with the wide receiver like Hollywood or Jaden Reed or the man of the hour, or do I go A. Richardson or Stroud? I might go A. Richardson here.
I like the QB. Yeah.
Woo! Look at that team. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Kyron Williams, Travis Kelce, Anthony Richardson. As balanced as you can get, minus instead of getting a second receiver, I went second running back, but that's balance right there. That is a tough squad. That is a tough squad. This is what's the contest? We're doing Chihuahua, right? Chihuahua. So first place gets 50K,
Okay, yeah.
Second gets 20K. Chihuahua, I think, is just the normal. Yeah.
I just saw in the comments or chat there, Smoke was saying, talking about taking Corum as Kyron's cuff, but that he'd rather take Keon Coleman. Are they that close in ADP now?
Probably, and that's a tough one because if you think you're going to lose Coleman, it depends on, you got to kind of play like chess. You got to be 4 moves ahead. Who is the receiver you're going to get when you make this move, when you take Corum early? What wide receiver are you getting instead of Coleman? If it's a wide receiver like, let me go to Coleman's ADP. If it's a wide receiver below that's like JSN, I'm okay with that. Jamison Williams, those are pretty good wide receivers. Jahan Dotson's much lower, but like it depends, what kind of build you have. And this is another thing that I think is so dumb about preaching data all the time is like, whether you go 4 running backs or 5 running backs, whether you go 4 wide receivers in the top 7 picks or 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers, some of that and most of that depends on how good those exact players are, how consistent they're going to be, how much, so like in the case of like Coleman over Corum, what does your RB room look like? Like, do you need this to happen? Are you playing in a non-best ball? That's even, I would say, more important because you don't have the ability to have like other players from your bench get shoved in optimal scoring wise. You have to like decide, and there's just more advantage of having the potential, as we say, shots in the dark that you have when you have the ability to like take a little bit of a gamble. You miss out on Corum, you're still replacing Corum with a nice shot in the dark, as we call it. I hate to say shot in the dark because you never want to draft a player that's get you no points. You never want to do that. That's why Frank Gore is no longer a guy I'm drafting, even though I want to. You can't afford it. You just can't afford it. When Buzz kicks up Frank Gore Jr., like you can draft him again, but you cannot. You cannot take him right now in best ball because he doesn't even have a roster spot on the active. Like he's not on the active roster. Like you can't take zeros like that from a 5-man running back stable, and you can't have a 6-man running back stable on average because then you're hurting too bad at another position. So, but as for like, I don't know. It's so tough to really break it down. Coleman or Corum. But I'd say that Coleman is around 70. Blake Corum is around 120 on this particular draft. So they're pretty far apart.
I thought he was pretty far apart, yeah. That's why I was asking, because I was thinking he can probably manage both.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. On an underdog, it's different. Like, Sebastian, I see your comment that they're not even close. It depends where you're drafting, Sebastian. If you're drafting on underdog, look at all the orange, bro. The wide receivers are pulled up so high. Corum and Coleman are not close in ADP. But in a mom and pop draft, Coleman's going to fall all the way to probably I don't know. Where'd he go in this draft? He's probably going like right about now, I imagine. Is he on let me see where he is. Yeah, he's second wide receiver available. I might even take him. So we're talking about 6th round territory, but all this orange right here is why he's there. His ADP is very much in the Corum, in like a mom and papa in your grandma's league. Like they're gonna be a lot closer. Look, Keon Coleman. You mention it just it's just you can't do anything in this environment. Hold on a second. Let me draft here. JSN.
Might dig in.
I'll probably go JSN here. I need a receiver. I need somebody I really like. Somebody I trust. I've got Kyron, Christian McCaffrey. Oh man. I made timeout, but I got someone queued. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let it just take him. I went running back again. I'm a big proponent of having 3 running backs that I feel can be. I want my flex to be an RB every time. Anyway, yeah. So Coleman, Corum, miles apart on underdog, not miles apart in a mom and pop environment. Eric with the $100 hauler. Let's go, Eric. Let's go, bro. Let's go.
Give me $50 holler. Right there by the brother Smitty. Give me $50. Oh, yeah.
Eric to the moon. Eric, what's up, my guy? Eric. What did Eric say? What's Eric's message here? Eric says, Eric says, to the president of the JD5 fan club. Eric, I appreciate that, Eric. I appreciate getting acknowledged for being the leading man of the JD5 fan club. I take pride in that. I conduct the train is maybe a shirt I need to make for myself. The JD5 train. Because I can tell you right now, even back in January, when we were talking about this, everybody thought it was a joke. You know, even the Penix Jr. stuff, a joke. Smitty, Penix Jr. won't even be a first rounder. But I stuck to my guns. JD5 and Penix Jr. were 2 of the very, very first Moonman, Marsman, Saturnman guys added to those lists, and I couldn't be more proud of how JD5 looks now fantasy-wise. I really am so proud of the stand we took, the balls we had, and watching everybody else act like they saw this coming. They didn't.
Yeah. 4 months before he was even on a team, you had him. So I think that's deserved.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Appreciate that acknowledgement. My guy. It's like I feel like I was getting an award there. I'd like to thank Ma, who's getting the meatloaf ready for tomorrow. Big tray of it. I'd like to thank Travis, moderator Travis. I'd like to thank Denny, who doesn't even watch the show. I don't know if anybody saw that, but we questioned Denny hardcore, and he said that he doesn't watch the show at all. I knew he didn't. I used the psychology that your boy got from the escuela. Okay, so many years ago, I like to dabble in psychology, and I psychoanalyzed him. And I said, Denny, tell me if I'm right or wrong. You don't ever watch the show, do you? And he said, no. His friend gave him the phone number and told him that this guy's really cool if you ever want to talk football. And he started calling. He doesn't ever watch the show. That's why he calls without knowing where I'm at in my monologue or where I'm at in my show. Denny never, ever, ever has watched the show. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate you. It's unbelievable. I honestly thought that was amazing news when I heard it. I couldn't believe it. Even though I had a suspicion, a sneaky suspicion.
A lot more makes sense now that we confirmed that. Because like you said, he'll just call out of the blue and not be on topic or anything, and you just call him to talk football.
Yeah. And no offense, Yeet, to call you out on this, but this is what I'm talking about, where it's like people are told that the data says this, the data says that from last year. They're told from last year that you got to do this, you got to do that. There are certain percentages of people, so I'll read his comment. You need at least 4 or 5 wide receivers through 7 rounds. The data says it, and you will not win, which is not. It's not true. There are different things. There's so many different ways to break that down. It's such a blanket way to talk about it, and unfortunately, it's a narrative that's pushed out there that it unfortunately continues to get
There's
perpetuated.
a big video out there right now going around on it.
I'm gonna grab AD Mitchell here.
I think a good amount of these young wide receivers are going to have pretty good first years. Like, I'm not saying like top 5 or top 10, but like make a mark right away. I think more of these guys are going to hit than usual. You know, people say
I reached a little on these two guys.
50%.
I reached a little on these guys.
75% miss, but yeah, but you got to get your guys there.
Yeah, the other thing too, what people I believe the narrative people push on the data is that like you can't look at number one. Here's the rub. The narrative is this, and this is what someone cannot argue. The narrative is that you have to take wide receivers early or you can't win. The problem is this is being told to so many people who then replicate it. And then you have the majority of people who are actually good at fantasy football deploying it. Whether it's the best strategy or not, they're deploying it. And so then you have a bigger population of good drafters that are going to typically, no matter what strategy they pick, draft better teams. But what you can't measure is that if you were to have these guys, you say, look, I only want you to draft running back, or running back, wide receiver, running back. I don't want you. I want you to take a balanced approach this season. Those good drafters who are choosing to draft wide receiver heavy in almost every draft because they're being told, but they are better drafters on average than the people just taking random approaches. Your data is going to be so skewed. And so if you went to second of all, the guy that won the BBM 2023 Best Ball Mania went running back. Like, a lot of people don't talk about that. He went running back in 2023. And people just assume that because this data is overwhelmingly telling you that the heavy wide receiver approaches are more often getting you into the finals, when you look at the fact that this is being deployed by 80% of the entire draft pool in every single draft. Of course you're going to see more people advance because everybody's deploying it. But imagine if you went against traffic. Imagine if you took the best players available. Imagine if you lived in a world where the wide receiver pool was different this year than it was last year. Imagine if the rookies, and that's especially who I love to grab too, or sophomores and 30-year players. Imagine if these rookies came to play ball and you had the advantage at the RB, QB, and tight end positions. It's just so odd to me that you have, no offense, Yeet, these comments that are so absolute about you can't win. The data shows you can't win. The data from last year shows you can't win with this upcoming season's player data? Really? Really?
Well, it's like Justin Herbert TD in the chat says, it's legit data since Underdog has been around, not just 1 year sample. Well, they launched in 2020. And so I guess you could say 2 seasons, but they weren't nearly as big.
But I just explained that, and not to you, Travis, but just for Herbert, who likes to go against everything I say, to be honest with you. But just so if you're watching, like Herbert and I agree, we couldn't agree on a cup of coffee. We couldn't agree on the right sandwich to get at McDonald's. We couldn't agree at In-N-Out when they have either a double or a single. He would have, I want no patty, or I would want the no patty. I want the Flying Dutchman, and he want 3 patty. He want 3 buns. Like he would agree with anything I say. And he loves what's going on in LAC. Anyway, I just explained to you, Herbert, that when you have 80% of the entire draft pool and they're good, the best drafters, I'd say 80% of the best drafters are deploying the strategy, not because it is the best strategy, because they've been told it is. And I'm not saying these guys don't think for themselves. They're good drafters, but you'll find that people follow. It's a copycat type of environment, you're going to see somebody win with that. They're going to copy it. Everybody's going to copy it. You're naturally going to have a saturation of that approach in the market. Oh, I'm on the clock. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. All right, I took Blake Corum. So that's where Blake Corum goes. So Blake Corum in an underdog draft goes here. Where was they're miles apart on underdog because of that? Like I said, the wide receiver. Where'd he go? Keon Coleman 71, Blake Corum 121. They're decades apart on a best ball draft in a best ball draft environment. But anyways, what I was trying to say, and I'll leave it here, is that you can't if I got all the top 10 best ball players in each tournament together, and I said, guys, let's only draft 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a quarterback, or whatever combination we decided to deploy, they're better drafters than everybody, no matter what path they choose. On average, they're doing so many drafts, right? Everybody's maxing out. If you're an elite best ball player, you're maxing out the Best Ball Mania. That's just the way that it kind of goes, like, right? So if you had those people drafting a running back approach, or let's say they had to pick running back, or draft 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers in the first 6 rounds, and draft a quarterback potentially early, those people would be on average advancing more, and you would have people going, oh, the data shows you should go a split 3-3. That's what I'm trying to tell you. When everybody's deploying this and everybody's following everybody and everybody's scared about everybody consuming the wide receivers, they're going to continue to do it. But what happens when there's a year, like I believe this year, where the wide receiver pool is so deep that I look at this and I say to myself, okay, so let's go back up and look at who's scooping up wide receivers left and right. I'm not saying that George Pickens is bad at 42. I'm not saying Christian Kirk is bad at 46. I'm not even saying Malik Neighbors is bad at 27. I'm not saying Cooper Kupp's bad at 33. I'm not saying that Michael Pittman Jr. is bad at 40. What I am saying, though, is there are scenarios that I envision where Keon Coleman, JSN, Roma Dunze potentially, Hollywood Brown, Jahan Dotson, Christian Watson, 2 of the men of the hour, A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr. Like those guys, there is a scenario where those guys are scoring as well as the guys I just named off, where everybody's just avoiding running backs, passing on Josh Jacobs, passing on Mahomes and Hurts, and passing on players because they think they have to consume wide receivers. Balance is, in my opinion, the best approach of any kind in any draft, in any environment. Doesn't matter what it is. It comes down to you landing your picks. If you know what the hell you're doing. Let's say this wide receiver room doesn't land for me. Then yeah, I probably have a tough time winning this tournament with this specific team. But if I get the most out of Debo, JSN, A.D. Mitchell, Jahan Dotson, if my wide receivers come to play ball, if Jahan Dotson has the year we thought he could have, if A.D. Mitchell's a top 12 wide receiver, like things play out so great for this team because of how the hell I'm stacked at all those other positions. You gotta lay in your picks. If you don't lay in your picks, you're not winning nothing. Like it doesn't matter. There's in the percentages, there's still somebody that went running back. Like somebody's made a certain percentage of people made the finals by going 2 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds. There is data. Just because the data is more overwhelmingly, hey, X percentage more made it, they went wide receiver, or 4 wide receivers in the top 7 rounds. The statement that, what was his name, that Yeet made earlier was that you will not win. That's not true. It's not true. It just matters how good are the people in that pool. How good are the drafters doing the oddball different approaches? That's what you got to ask yourself.
Smitty, I can back you on that statement too. Over the last 3 to 4 years, the running back has been quote unquote dead other than your CMC or your Jonathan Taylor that 1 year. And we're moving in a direction where all these young running backs are taking over. So I think it becomes more balanced. as we do go forward.
Yeah,
'Cause,
you look at
running backs were non-existent.
You look at Bijan Brees, Jahmyr Gibbs, Achane Kyren, Taylor Barkley. Any one of those guys could be right behind Christian McCaffrey. That's something you couldn't say a handful of years ago.
And there's so many wide receivers. I know. I think he was saying the top so many almost always finish at the same top so many, but I don't necessarily buy that, because there's so many wide receivers out there that okay, the top 5 or 8 might be the same, and we draft those guys high anyway. But once you get below the top 10, it's like good luck telling me what like wide receiver 10 to 25 is going to be and getting it right. You can do the best you can, but guys are going to jump into that range all the time.
Yeah. And just so anybody doesn't understand what the hell I'm saying, because it seems like not say nobody, the people that are hell-bent against what I'm saying, they don't listen to what I'm saying. I've drafted wide receiver before. If that's the way best player dictates I go, I will go that direction. No one is saying you need to have any set strategy, at least for me. I'm telling you, don't have this preconceived notion that you're going to go in and draft wide receiver, or 4 wide receivers in the top 6 rounds. You're taking positions. You're not drafting players. I'm in the business of drafting players. I'm not in the business of playing some dartboard game where I'm out there drafting in so many best ball tournaments, and I am, that I'm just throwing darts, and eventually I'm going to hit the right wide receivers, and because people have won with that, I'm going to do it. I'm actually trying to crush every pick I make. I'm trying to get the most bang for the buck at every pick that I select. And when I'm sitting here faced with the dilemma of going Kyren or forcing a wide receiver, if I believe Kyren's going to be a top 1 to 5 running back, especially if I have him cuffed, and you bet your bottom dollar I cuffed him down here, I've got Corum cuffed to Kyren. I almost feel like if Kyren stays healthy all year, he could be the number 1 running back. I think he could be. Of course, I got Christian McCaffrey, Gibbs, Bijan, and Hall ranked above him. But Kyren has every ability, especially the cuff. The cuff could be the safest running back in fantasy football. To ignore that at 25 overall because I want to draft a position, I think is reckless. You could say, Smitty, I would have went wide receiver instead of Kelsey, but I'm potentially dominating the tight end position. There's gives and takes, man. You can't. My wide receiver room is absolutely going to look weaker to the average person, and I understand that, and I accept that. I've got Debo, JSN, A.D. Mitchell, Jahan Dotson, Malachi Corley. This team might not win. I'm also in a snipe environment, so players haven't quite fallen the way that I've wanted them later for wide receiver. So I'm admitting that this team may not be as good as the team I try exactly the same outside of the snipe environment where we're all taking each other's guys early. I'm not afraid to deploy this over and over and over. I will get the right combination, and I love the variance that I'll have in case this thing goes the way that I think it could. In some of these scenarios, I've seen, like Patrick Mahomes fall with Kelsey there, and I get Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes instead of Kelsey and Anthony Richardson. So it just depends on who falls, but I love the start. Do I love the JSN value? It's pretty good. I think that, I will be definitely beholden to my wide receiver 2 and 3, but I'm fine with that. My team is so good outside of that's the gamble I'm willing to take here. Matthew with another $5 hauler. Let me see if I have any other super chats that came in. Carrie dropped one, Christian dropped one, and Matthew dropped another $5 hauler. Appreciate you guys dropping these. Let me start off with Carrie's. His came in first. Carrie said, crossing the streams, but I feel like JD5 deserves his own animation. Yeah, I agree with you. I'll create one. Carrie, that's a great point. I run out of time, but I definitely will do that. Let me just see if I can queue up a couple players real quickly. Hold on one second, guys. Let me find. Yeah, this is crazy because none of the guys, so many guys got sniped. Like Ricky Parasol went in the 11th round. think that's a lot higher than his ADP. Let's see here. Who do you guys like at wide receiver here? Troy Franklin, Luke McCaffrey, McMillan.
Luke. McCaffrey.
Yeah, I like that. You guys see the news today that he's taking snaps at RB?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's
play all over.
There's a lot of upside there. A lot of upside. I'm gonna go Ben Sinnott here. I think he could be the next Laporta potentially. So this team's coming together. I got a lot of rookies. Whenever I do this late wide receiver 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like I'm going late wide receiver 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm definitely grabbing tons of rookies. Someone's gonna pop between A.D. Mitchell, Malachi Corley, Luke McCaffrey, players like that. Matthew with the super chat. What would you change on Team 12 draft wise? Trying to improve, but I just try to take the best player available. Definitely keep in mind, and I also want people that are watching my stream to understand that I do factor in week 17, week 16 correlations. I do factor in stacking. I do factor in what last year's data says. I think there's important reasons to use last year's data. Like, for example, the most teams made it to the final week and final round having usually 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends. Some of that data is useful, and what that tells you is that the injuries, the odds of needing that third player in a rotation to step up, things like that, I think that data can be carried over from year to year and be important data. It's not always, but I think it can be. I think that when people start trying to tell you need to draft a certain position that's changed over the last year, like Sebastian just said, and like I've preached to you for months now, this is a different RB group than we had last year. You've also got the ability to draft guys like Achane and Kyren late, which make it attractive to go Christian McCaffrey. I would have went Achane, Christian McCaffrey, and Kyren Williams. I probably wouldn't have gone Travis Kelce. I would have went wide receiver, probably with all things being equal at that 4 and 5 pick, and I would have avoided my early quarterback. That's how that stuff changes for you, right? Then I would have 2 wide receivers. But I would have went Christian McCaffrey, Achane, and Kyren. And I'm not afraid to do that because Achane and Kyren have every bit the ability to get up into the top 5 running back scoring than anybody on the board. And I could end up finishing with running back 1, 4, and 5. It would be insane. It would be insane scoring from that position. And the data last year, in some tournaments across others were different results, but you tended to have a higher advance rate when your flex was an RB in some tournaments over others. So it just depends. That data is different. Some people say you want your wide receiver to be your flex. That is not always the case. There were plenty of opportunities for people to have winning teams that advanced to the final round that had running backs in their flex spot. But I think what it comes down to is this player pool is so deep this year across all positions, especially wide receiver and running back and tight end and quarterback, like all the positions, like literally, you can't leave one out. They're so deep this year. I believe it gives you the ability to do whatever build works for your skill set. If you're a good late wide receiver gem finder, then that's probably the approach you want to take regardless of what the data says. If you suck at finding late wide receivers, then you probably do want to follow the trend. I'm not saying force it, but that might be where you lean. That's the kind of thinking you got to bring into a best ball draft. So make sure you are using week 16 and week 17 correlations when it makes sense. Make sure you are trying to draft a team that's stacked if it means it's as good. Don't go stacking 2 players that score less points because they're on the same team and you heard that it's good to do that. Make sure it makes a lot of sense for your team. From the 12 team, Puka, Marvin, Sam Laporta, Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Walker, Stroud, Ramondre, Zamir White. I like the team a lot. Look, Zamir White, Ramondre could be top 10 running backs. Kenneth Walker could be a top 10 running back. They're very, very much risky top 10 running back plays, but you got 3 of them. And you got 2 amazing wide receivers. You got the top tight end in fantasy football. You got arguably a top 1 to 3 quarterback. You've got another top 5 quarterback in Stroud. Your bully tight end or bully quarterback approach is maybe the only place I would say you could explore, like, going a different position there versus Bully QBing it. But, like, look, it worked out well for you. Ramondre, Zamir White, Tajay Spears, Palmer, Pearsall, Leggette's a great grab. Javon Baker, you did well. I would say I'm not going to deter you away from doing that strategy over and over and over and tweaking it and getting different variations of it, bro. I would say do it live. I like it a lot. I think you did an excellent job. All right, hold on a second, boys. Let me grab somebody here. McMillan?
Sure.
Or McMillan? McMillan's my guy. Okay, so I need to. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got almost too many receivers here. I love my running back stable. I'm feeling really good about that. This is round 17, right? Okay, I'm gonna go QB.
Don't forget about Trey Burton.
I'm gonna go Bo Nix here just to get somebody else in the QB room that I think will play all year. He's got the same bye week as A. Richardson though. But what did you say? Who's talking very, very low? I could barely hear you. You said don't forget about who?
Trey Burton. Raiders. I think that's his last name. I don't know. I've dealt with so many damn players.
Trey Tucker?
In the past.
Is it Trey Tucker?
What's he saying?
Trey Tucker. That's
Yeah, I actually have a couple shares
Yeah.
of him.
Yeah. Like
He's
Burton.
a little bit interesting.
Trey Burton. Yeah, look, I've drafted better teams in this. I'm not going to sit here and act like this is my favorite team I've ever drafted. I think that I would have got better wide receivers in a non-snipe environment, but boo-hoo for me. Like, I drafted, I believe, the best players I could get at that moment. If I could go back in time on anything, it would maybe be, instead of taking Najee, maybe I take Lad McConkey and get another wide receiver. Maybe I take a Hopkins or a Watson or, someone like Brian Thomas Jr. instead of taking Najee, maybe. That's the only thing I can say I regret on the squad. I don't regret my early running back approach. I don't regret going one wide receiver in the first 6 rounds. I don't care. I'll draft how I believe. And it's not like I didn't make finals last year. Like, people are always so wild. Like, Smitty, I made several finals. I had a really good year on Underdog last year that could have been so much better. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and act like McCaffrey and Kamara didn't screw me out of probably at least I want to say I was at one point I don't know if you remember the numbers I was putting on my Instagram stories. I was updating as it was live. I want to say I was in let me see what it was. I got it in one of my leagues. I want to say it was inside the top 10 in the Superflex big board. And then Christian McCaffrey, and I was right there. Christian McCaffrey and Kamara hadn't really done anything yet, and I'm like, okay, all I need is for them to step up, and I can get first in this easy. And it was floating around I want to say it was like 35. Let me see. Hold on. I ended up getting I think it was the $1,500 prize in that league, but it just sucked. I didn't get any more production from those two guys. They screwed me. Christian McCaffrey screwed a lot of people last year. So did Kamara at the end of the day. Kamara was great getting us to the finals, but boy did and no one talks about that either with Christian McCaffrey. I'm not saying you're going to blame him for one game, but Christian McCaffrey didn't help anybody win a championship last year at the end of the day. He's definitely pissed off a lot of people. Let's see. I think this is where it was. Let me see if I can find I think I got a screenshot of it somewhere in here. I was bouncing it around. I was showing screenshots. 1K. So what? At one point it's at 4K. Another point it was at $35,000. So this is where I don't know if you guys can see this right here. This is where I was sitting at. I took a screenshot of it. $35,000 on the leaderboard, and I was sitting there at $35,000 with Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara at halftime, and I'm sitting to myself going, I don't know if I jinxed myself, but I sent this screenshot in this league here, and I said I have a shot at this $35,000. I'm in. This is what I was at. I was sitting there without Christian McCaffrey and Kamara doing shit for a half. I was sitting at $35,000, and then they both don't play the second half. I was so freaking pissed. I ended up getting, I think it was $1,500 in that tournament because I think it dropped to like 30th or 40th place or whatever, but it pissed me off. That was one where I was like sweating bullets the entire time. Hold on a second, let me draft. Oh, is someone talking? Someone's got like a robotic situation going on.
Sounds like an intercom.
Do I need another RB here, boys? Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Najee Harris, Corum.
No.
If not, I'm going to go with another QB swing. I went Penix Jr.
Smitty, I got a 1.1 overall question because I'm sure you saw in the Patreon, me and a couple of other folks, we were talking about how the number one red zone target finished as wide receiver 1 over like the last 6 or 7 years or so.
Say that one more time, bro.
We were talking in the Patreon about how the wide receiver 1 overall, really since like 2017 or 2018, the wide receiver 1 overall has always been the highest red zone target wide receiver. And
I mean, that makes sense.
That came to mind. Yeah, of course. And the first person that came to mind, is because I was looking into it with these new kickoff rules, was Jamar Chase. What do you think about him at 1.1 in a couple best ball drafts?
I mean, the fact that you don't need to necessarily take him there, I'm not saying I don't like to try and, that's what I was saying earlier, is like in a couple drafts, absolutely, bro, just mix it in because you want to try and build Jamar Chase teams from a few draft slots because a lot of the same players kind of fall. So you may get totally different players at 1 than you would 3 or 4 or 5. So in a couple drafts, but on average, I would not recommend that be a usual strategy.
6 in 1.
Yeah, but like, I mean, even Bijan, like from the 1 and 2 once in a while, like in a great while, just because you want to take your Christian McCaffrey shots. But there are scenarios where I want to have a Bijan team with the guys falling right here. Like, how else are you going to get Kyron and Achane and Bijan together? Unless you do, a trio right here.
You'd be drafting too heavy at the running. That's what I'm saying. If I went Chase and got Kyron at that turn, what do you think of that versus like a CMC and a Devo?
Well, I know some of my favorite teams have been Lamb or Jamar Chase with Achane and Kyron at 2nd and 3rd round value. So you kind of have to do that at the front end of a draft. So I'm okay with that. I almost forced CeeDee Lamb here instead of McCaffrey just to get more balance in this particular draft. So Christian says, can you
GPS on?
You what?
Someone have like a GPS on or something?
I don't know.
Maybe
someone has background noise.
This right here, well, it might be Adam. Adam, I'm coming to you in 1 second, Adam. Hold on. Let me just give the super chat attention here. From the 6th spot, thank you, Christian. Appreciate you. Amon Robb, Mike Evans, Zay Flowers, Travis Etienne, Rashad White, Aaron Jones, Jordan Love. I like the squad, bro. Zay's a little high there for me, but that's kind of where I feel like, we're forcing it at that point. But at the same time, so many players got sniped at that stage. I don't think you were crazy. The other options were not much different. So I don't think you made a mistake there at all. This is where I kind of go early quarterback because I feel like the value is a little bit better there than taking Zay, but I like Zay a lot. I want it to come off like I don't like Zay, but that's where I'd smash the early quarterback. You got Jordan Love, though, so you got to ask yourself, is like Zay Flowers and Jordan Love better than, let's call it, like Josh Allen went 38, bro. Like, he's the number one scorer in fantasy football. Like, do you take Josh Allen instead of Zay? And then down there where Jordan Love is, let's just look at the wide receivers there. Like, is Brian Thomas and Josh Allen better than Jordan Love and Zay? I would say yes. That's the only thing I would have done different. I know not everybody agrees with me, but that's the way my mind works, and I'm going to continue to deploy it that way. And I've had great success doing it. It's not like I'm experimenting with it. This is 20 plus years of going to bat for early quarterback and just scratching my head every year at the people that peddle out this early quarterback is bad. It's insane. Let's see here. Yeah, so good teams, everybody. I don't know if anybody else is in here. I'm probably not going to stay much longer because I'm exhausted tonight. But let me go over to Adam real quick. Adam, you got about a minute. I'm sorry I left you on hold so long, but hit me with your question, bro.
I don't have a question. I was just going to say you're absolutely right about the data because nobody really has a good sample size investment, no matter what the format is. So
yeah.
All your best teams in the finals, none of those teams had a top tight end, and they were all correlated. So all their QBs had the top pass catcher, either a mini stack or, just a massive stack for the most part. So, no, you're absolutely right about the data. The data is...
It's important to acknowledge it. I want to make that abundantly clear. It's important to acknowledge stacking. It's important to acknowledge week 17, week 16 correlation. Some people love correlating week 16 more so than anything so they can get there. Because you can't worry. Look, your week 17 correlation means nothing if you don't make it there. So keeping in mind all of this, like trying to chew gum and walk at the same time is very important. But the problem is a lot of people can't necessarily do that yet. And so they just go all in on one of these like lines of thinking and they don't take the best players. And then they don't end up in the finals anyway. But again, I mean the fact remains that so many people are hell bent on wide receiver early. You're going to continue to see data supporting that some of the best teams drafted are by people drafting wide receiver early, because that's what some of the best people are doing over and over and over and over, regardless of whether you could say, well, they're doing it for a reason, Smitty. Maybe. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't have had a better team, a few of those guys, by going against traffic. They might have had an even better team. Maybe some of these guys that made the finals that lost would have actually won if they had gone against traffic and landed some. It all comes down to, do you land your players? There's nothing really else that matters. And then everything else is secondary levels of trying to increase your odds. If you don't land your players, you can't make it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I'm leaving Huntsville. I talk with a lot of scout analysts for the NFL. I do a lot of work for the NFL. Just left Huntsville. I'm heading to Ravens Stadium right now. They're all saying the same thing. They all play basketball. So, whenever you got people that are directly affiliated with the NFL saying the same thing, I mean, the data is just not true. It's not a raw data set that we actually have.
Yeah.
And you gotta, say for example, your best tight ends were first rookies last year. But is that going to translate to this year? Probably not. More than likely not.
And you didn't have the deep tight end pool that you have now. So it's hard to even bring any correlation to that idea, because now all of a sudden you can get Dallas Goedert as the 12th tight end, and he could be the tight end 4 or 3. You know, like you just gotta, at some point you gotta say, look, the wide receiver, the tight end, the quarterback, and the running back pools there's never been so much parity in a good way ever that I can remember in 20 plus years of doing this professional. I've never seen every category stacked to the rafters, it seems. And some of that is, you know, the league's going to be even higher scoring this year than ever. The parity kind of makes it even more unpredictable. That's why Superflex becomes important, because it's really hard to trip and fall into a Superflex championship. Like, that adds a dynamic of difficulty that weeds out the novice. You know, you could have your random person that doesn't watch football win the work fantasy league, but if it's Superflex, they won't.
The only direct correlation anybody actually had in the finals, more than likely they had Sam Laporta to smash the hell out of that pig and got lucky with everything else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't extract all that data and just say that's how it's going to be and that's how it is. It's just not.
Yeah. All right, bro. Hey, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate you, Adam. Calling tomorrow, bro. Appreciate you. Let me go over to Rockout real quick. Rockout, you got to find out any question. You're Mars man. You get the floor here. I am jumping off the show now, though. I got to get my steps in before midnight anyway. I got about 45 minutes by the time I get off here to get in about 5,000 steps. This one's going running. Anything else I can do for you, Rock, or anything I can do for you, Rockout? Hit me with it.
Yeah, can I give you my bad team?
Sure.
Quarterback, Burrow, Stafford, Wilson. Running back, CMC, Kyron Williams, Jacobs, Benson, Allen. Wide receivers, DK, Reed,
Nice.
JSN, Mitchell, Dotson, Purcell, Corley, tight end, Schultz, Sanders, and Woods.
I like it. I like it, bro. I like it. Nice job. Sebastian, you got any final thoughts? Real quickly?
Yeah, Devontae Smith, he's still going to smash. I love him.
Yeah.
But his price did go up, but it's for good reason.
Hopefully he doesn't become a second drafted player, then it's going to be hard to draft him. Yeah, I agree. Stay in the third drafted player territory, Devonta Smith, and then we love you. All right, later.
Did something come out on him?
You what?
He was going like mid-third before, like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I don't know.
He was going after pick
I don't
30.
know why. I mean, he got paid, and everybody just kind of sat on it, and now all of a sudden people are coming around. I don't know. I don't know what. I think it's really just the correlation to week. You know, everyone wanting that week 17 value. I think it's what it is. I don't think there's anything else other than that. I think, you know, that Dallas Philly game is just got people like people. I think people are consuming that. That's why I'm saying that even the great best ball players are still copying and repeating, not because they're bad. Obviously they're good, but they don't want to be, for whatever reason right now, they don't want to drive against traffic. I predict that in a year or two, maybe next offseason, you'll see a big trend of going against the data. Just because going against traffic presents more opportunities, and that's what I'm trying to tell people here tonight, and try and tell people every time I go live when we talk about best ball. The opportunities are greater for going against traffic if you land things right. Did I land it right in my draft? Not really, because I got sniped. We're in a snipe environment. If I try this without having where everyone's grabbing my guys, like we talked about Keon Coleman and he went the next pick, if we're not in that type of situation, I can hit the wide receivers better. So I didn't smash my wide receivers. I wish I could have, you know, tried to deploy this exact strategy and gotten a little bit better wide receiver at 6, and then I probably would have taken one at 7, but I didn't like the wide receivers that were left, so I went with Najee there. But I easily could have, in a normal environment, a Jaden Reed as my wide receiver 2 with JSN, and I would have loved that. But anyway, appreciate you all. I'll see you all later. See you tomorrow.
Have a good night, man.
Later, guys. All right, I'm out of here. Appreciate you all. Hit that thumb up button on your way out the door if you want to get in on the next one, hit that link that's pinned in the live chat. Thank you to my super chatters. I think I have one more from Skyward. Skyward says, hey, Smitty, 10-team keeper league. You think it's worth keeping Rashee Rice at my 17 or Jaden Reed at 18? Look, bro, Rashee Rice may be suspended for the entire year, and if he isn't, he'll be next year, or he's at least out half a year minimum. And I don't know that he'll ever. I don't care about Rashee Rice, bro. I want nothing to do with him. You'll be able to get him back in that late territory. Jaden Reed's going way earlier. Jaden Reed is the easy call. This is not even a debate.
You've just been Smitty approved.
Jaden Reed, Smitty approved on that one. Thank you, Skyward, for dropping the super chat. Thank you all for whoever dropped the super chat tonight. Thank you to my mods. Matthew, Eric dropping that 50 watt earlier. What a 100. Eric dropping the 100. What a monster. Smitty approved.
You've just been Smitty approved.
What a monster. Carrie, Christian, Matthew, and Skyward, and Matthew again. Thank you guys for dropping your super chats. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. In my time, it's in 45 minutes. In your time, Eastern, if you're in Eastern, it's already Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. See you all tomorrow. Oh, sorry, Travis. I was trying to rush off the phone. So, did you even speak? Travis, call in tomorrow. We'll get you taken care of. I'm sorry, bro. All right, see you all in a little bit. I got to go get my steps in later. Otherwise, my watch moves over, and I don't want to be all messed up and manually moving my steps from... I got to hit the number.